Yeah. Yes, what is it, Jonathan?
Well, I was waiting. Yeah, that's right. That's what Finsbury Park. Yeah.
Yes, what is it, Jonathan? Yeah.
Stop.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay. I was waiting for a bus in Finsbury Park on the south bit of Finsbury Park, and I noticed that Romans, the bowling people, they do bowling. There's bowling there, but there is also I noticed, because it was late at night and the neon sign was lit up, they also do something called music and dace. And
What?
music and
dace? You mean the fish?
Yeah.
Dace? That sounds very strange. Music
And I haven't
dace.
gone there yet because I haven't had the time, but it got me thinking, because I know about music and how it might affect fish, but how might dace affect music?
Exactly. I mean, how
And
would,
is
how
there
would
any
their
effect?
reactions be different to, say, salmon or
No, but you're
carp?
not hearing what I'm saying.
Sorry.
How can dace affect music? And I've looked into this.
Oh, I see. The
I've
other
done a
way
bit of-
around.
Yeah, how can dace affect music? Music and world music, whatever. And I've looked into it, and apparently there's absolutely no effect. There's no. They don't have any effect on music whatsoever. Which is,
Viola joke.
Okay. All right.
So for this one, we've got to use one microphone.
Yeah.
So could you put it up a bit? Maybe put it
Sure.
up.
I can bring it over a bit.
Okay. This is a certain type of text piece that we do. Okay. Oh, God.
I think we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Go, listen to it. Will you like these?
I know I shouldn't laugh, but I know the answer to this. What's the difference between a trampoline and a viola?
Oh, well, people take off their shoes to jump on a trampoline.
You answer next one.
Yeah, no. What's the definition of a quarter tone?
Two violas playing the same note.
Yeah, it's because they're not very good at intonation or whatever. Is that right?
What is the difference between a viola and a coffin?
Difference between viola and a coffin. A coffin has a dead person on the inside.
A viola player and a conductor are in the street. You are driving a car and cannot avoid them both. Which one do you hit?
Oh, well, that's the viola player. Business before pleasure.
Why do violinists switch to viola?
Yeah, I don't think this is a very nice answer, actually. It's so they can park in handicapped zones, and I think we'll shoot Adam for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. No offence to anybody. I don't. No, it's just that this was on the viola kind of site.
Yeah.
And it's on the internet. Yeah.
Get out clause.
Yeah. That's it. Why are violists' fingers like lightning?
Because they rarely strike the same spot twice. Incompetent violists.
What is the difference between a violist and a terrorist?
Yeah, not much, but apparently terrorists have sympathizers.
Why do viola players always have trouble entering a room?
Because they never know when to come in. Yes. Well, there we go. Any viola players in the audience?
We'll just do a short improvisation now, then.
I mean, that could apply to any instrument, of course, really. I think the oboe is due for some assessment. It's, thanks.
This is our last one now.
You can breathe a sigh of relief. Are we doing okay for time? Sure. Yeah, we... Ah!
Okay.
We'll talk fast.
Should be all right, yeah.
It's a routine. Oh, was it me first? Sorry. Oh. Sorry. God. Right. Interesting noises. Here, mate. I heard through the grapevine about that long-haul trip you made recently. It sounded like it was very much out of the ordinary.
Yeah, you're telling me, mate. I did major installation jobs for 2 lots of clients on a world called Third Earth.
Where the hell's that, mate? I never heard of it. I don't know if I'm Australian or not.
Well, it's about 134 light years away, and as I said before, it's called Third Earth. I mean, it took me 3 hyperspace jumps just to get there. The planet's slightly smaller than Earth, being about 22,000 miles in diameter and has a similar atmosphere.
Did anyone tell you what happened to Second Earth, or even if it actually existed?
No, mate, it didn't seem relevant to ask. And anyway, I was there for purely practical purposes as a contractor installing a series of shower units.
I'm all ears now, mate. Tell us about your first client on this planet.
Well, I landed on the largest landmass, and from the rocket ship, I walked to a building called Plunder Castle. The client was a rather frightening figure called Mumra. He reckoned that he was the most evil creature in the entire universe. And as his name suggests, he was like a decaying bandaged mummy. He spent a lot of the time in a sarcophagus, coffin.
But surely, mate, wouldn't the water from a shower make all the bandages fall off? And generally, for this sort of creature, be very counterproductive.
Your comments would be exactly right if he stayed like a mummy all of the time. But this just wasn't the case. I saw it happen while I was there. He suddenly rears up to 80 feet tall, and all the bandages fall away, and he screams, "I am the most evil creature," and other unpleasant things. Incidentally, at that point, his skin is a horrible grey colour. I could tell that he really needed a shower more than anything else. Oh yeah, I somehow forgot to mention, Mumra has a group of henchmen called the Mutants.
This sounds really intriguing. Tell me more about it, mate.
Well, one was called Jackal Man, obviously like a jackal, but on 2 legs. Then there was Slime, who's like a giant toad, and the Monkeyan, who, as the name suggests, resembled a monkey. There was also an even more sinister character that didn't seem to have an actual name. He had a sort of conical hat and a sort of screw thread instead of legs, and he didn't talk at all. All of these creatures lived in Mumra's gaff, where incidentally I stayed. As I said before, it's called Plunder Castle.
They sound like a pretty fearsome bunch, mate.
Well, actually, they seemed all right to me. Jackal Man could be slightly sarcastic sometimes, and Slime was kind of pretty unpleasant. But at least you can have a sort of joke with them occasionally. I sort of finished the whole job in about 5 days.
Well, what happened next?
Well, after saying goodbye to Mumra and the Mutants, I took the ground vehicle that I brought along in the hold of my spaceship and travelled about 40 miles to the second alliance on the planet.
Who the hell were they?
Well, it's a group of superhero humanoid cats called the Thundercats. They just escaped to Third Earth when their own planet of Thunder had blown up several years before. In fact, Mumra and the Mutants, who are their deadly enemies, followed them from the same world, apparently.
How many of these Thundercats were there?
Well, there's 7 of them all together. I'll tell you about them individually. Incidentally, their own gaff was called Cat's Lair, and appropriately, from the outside, it looked like a crouching cat. First there's Lino. His face looks a bit like a lion. He's the youngest and leader of the Thundercats. He was certainly the most friendly out of all of them. Then Panthera, who, as the name suggests, looks a bit like a panther. He was physically the strongest Thundercat and drove a sort of tank that again looked like a cat. Then there was a cheaterer. She was the only woman, and obviously she looked similar to a cheetah, but could run even faster than that animal. And I haven't mentioned the two children, the thunder kittens, so to speak, Wily Kit and Wily Cat, you know, a boy and a girl. I was never sure if Cheetah was their actual mum or not. They may have just been orphans from Thunderer. The Thundercats had just happened to take along with them when they blew up. Out of the goodness of their hearts. They're all in, and those two are in effect Haranee Thundercats. Moving on, there's a tiger. He had the ability to become invisible. He dealt with a lot of the admin side of cats there. And finally, there was Snarf. He was the oldest of them, and he looked more like a domestic cat, and he walked on 4 legs. And he manned the radio when the others were out fighting Mumra and the mutants. In addition, he helped Tigra with all the admin duties and stuff.
What did they think of you working for Mumra and the mutants before travelling to them?
Well, perhaps not surprisingly, they weren't too happy about it. After all, After I've been there a day now, so Lino asked me, quite frankly, why did you install a shower unit for one of the most evil creatures in the entire universe?
And how did you answer that question, mate?
Well, I said I'm a businessman, you know, contractor, trying to make a decent living. I can't involve myself in other people's conflicts and disputes and take sides. To me, Mumra and the mutants seem to be quite reasonable people.
Changing the subject drastically, did both of these groups pay their fares promptly, including the travel expenses?
Well, that's a funny thing. Lino, as the leader, dealt with the finances and was complaining about the travelling expenses quite a lot. He had the gall to ask me if the money for the shower unit wasn't enough.
How did you deal with that situation, mate?
Well, I had an ace up my sleeve because Mumra had paid the travelling expenses up front without asking any questions. It was not an issue, in other words.
I suppose that really put Lino on the spot. He could hardly refuse payment when one of the most evil creatures in the universe, by his own description, had paid up, straight away.
You got it exactly right, mate.
I'm afraid I've got 2 more questions for you, son. How long did you stay at the cat's lair? And was there other intelligent life locally?
Well, I was there for about 4 days, and yes, there were other groups friendly to the Thundercats. There's a village of young women called the Maidens, someone called the Tusker, like a walrus but on 2 legs, and his tribe, the Mole People, and a couple of humanoid settlements. This was in a roughly 200-mile wide radius. I don't know about the rest of the world.
How did you get along with the 2 kids, Wily Kit and Wily Cat?
Well, quite well initially, but then the little boy called Wily Cat tried to pickpocket my steel tape measure. I managed to stop him just in time, but felt like giving him a clip round the lug hole. Irritating little tyke.
It's a good job you didn't, mate. As superheroes, the adults could have reduced you to a pile of ashes. From where I'm standing, mate, you seem to be endorsing violence against children, mate.
No, of course not. Of course not. It was just an immediate reflex action to what was happening. What was going on?
I'm only pulling your leg, mate. Continue with your story. What happened next?
Well, on the final evening before the trip back, the Thundercats organised a party for me, a dinner party to see me off. Apparently Lino and the rest of them really liked the new shower units.
Who was at this party?
Well, obviously it was attended by all the Thundercats, all the Thundercats, 3 of the maidens, a Tusker with 2 of his officials, the leader of the mole people,
All right.
and several humanoid types from villages about 75 miles away.
Quite a mix then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was the general atmosphere like at this party?
Unfortunately, it was somewhat subdued. The wine didn't flow as freely as it could have done, so to speak. Snarf and Tiger, using the very advanced detection equipment in Cat's Lair, have picked up evidence of a major offensive by Mumra and the mutants that was going to come off in the next few days. In other words, it cast a pall on the proceedings.
I think you'll find that's Paul.
Paul, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right, mate.
But we did
Okay.
sort of
No, we'll cut our losses, John. We'll cut our losses.
thanks,
Yeah. Unless they want an encore.
so they went back to Earth. I think, is the thing. And
Can we have an encore?
can we just,
Can we just continue?
it's only another 2 minutes or
Just
so.
a tiny
yeah.
bit.
Okay.
We'll finish this.
Yeah, we'll just finish the story. It won't
This
take
piece
long,
of
it's only
literature.
half a page. Yeah, okay.
Okay, right. Quick.
Well,
Dosby.
as far as I could tell, Cheetah and Snarf did most of the cooking. The food was mostly vegetarian. They had a vegetable, it was a bit like a potato, except it was like sort of purple inside. The dessert was a brilliant orange and blue polka dot fruited sorbet, served with a delicious yellow sauce. Obviously not custard.
So, you started back to Earth the next day. How long did that journey take back to Earth?
Well, there were several cosmic storms along the way. And even with hyperspace drive, it took me around 8 days, mate.
Did you hear about Terry Stevens? He did a job on a planet 10,000 light years away.
Don't talk to me about that young upstart. He's a real Jack the Lad type. Got lots of lip on him. Always answering back. Needs to be taken down a peg or 2.
That may be the case, but that extremely long-haul job earned him an awful lot of lolly. He had to provide baths and shower units for a whole palace. It was a king that ruled over 2 continents there.
Well, for once being philosophical, mate, maybe I'm becoming rather too old for all this interstellar travel lot. From this moment on, my motto is going to be look after your own. Lambeth, Streatham, Lewisham, Downham, good old South London. Leave the different planets to the youngsters like Terry, Norman, John and their ilk.
I must admit, mate, I'm no spring chicken either. Maybe doing more local jobs would be better for me as well. You're right. Let the young whippersnappers like Terry, Neil, Norman and John travel to the ends of the galaxy and beyond. Let them do those jobs. It's not for us anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Jean and I'd like to thank Tom for making this possible. And thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you for the Bohman Brothers.
It's okay, it's 10:05. We had to start.